Here.
Present. Searpoy. Beck. Here. Present. Black. Bratton. Huff. Here. Present. Razer. Present. We have a quorum. To do what? I don't know that I would exec at all if we don't have votes. We'll just tell them.
Okay, we have a quorum. Senator Fitzwater, go ahead with your bill whenever you're ready. Senate Bill 537.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Travis Fitzwater, State Senate District 10. I'm bringing Senate Bill 537 before you. It's just an easy, simple land conveyance bill. This gives the Highway Department a piece of property that the state has owned since the early 1900s to sell because they no longer use it. And glad to take any questions. Pretty simple.
Thank you, Senator. Don't most senators say their bill is simple?
It's very simple, I promise.
Okay. Any questions for the witness? No questions up here. Anybody in favor of Senate Bill 537, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Jay Wonderlake, Missouri Department of Transportation, here to testify in support of Senate Bill 537. Senator Fitzwater is spot on. It is a very simple bill. It's a piece of legislation that would convey property to MoDOT, or to the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, so that it can sell a piece of its property to the private sector. And it's an old maintenance shed up around Bowling Green, and we want to get rid of the property and put the property back on the tax rolls. So we're supportive of 537.
Thank you, Jay. Any questions?
Thanks.
Seeing none. Anybody else testify in favor of Senate Bill 537, please come forward. Anybody testify in opposition to Senate Bill 537, please come forward. Anybody for informational purposes only? Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Rehder in here?
Oh.
She has people here?
People are here. She had persons. Who else you got?
Razer? Yeah. Okay, since nobody else wants to show up and Senator Razer is here, let's do Senate Bill 60. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, both of you. For the record, Senator Greg Razer from the 7th District in Jackson County, here to present Senate Bill number 60. This is more commonly known as MONA, the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act. It adds to our already existing human rights statute that protects Missourians based on a number of traits, including race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, etc., in housing, employment, and public accommodations. This bill simply adds sexual orientation or gender identity. That's what the bill does. For sake of time, let me tell you what it doesn't do. It does not require any religious organization to hire LGBT people. Doesn't require any religious organization to marry LGBT people. It shall not include the United States government, and it does not include private membership clubs. Those can still freely discriminate however they see fit. In housing, you can, if you are renting housing, you can still evict someone if they're dangerous. Just like today, you can evict a woman if she's causing trouble in your apartment complex. It doesn't matter that she's protected here. She is causing problems. You could do that. You'll be able to kick the gays out too if you need to. Nothing in this section limits reasonable local or state restrictions regarding the maximum number of occupants permitted to occupy a dwelling. Nothing in this chapter shall prohibit a religious organization from limiting the sale, rental, or occupancy of dwellings which it owns or operates for other than a commercial purpose to persons of the same religion, or from giving preference to such persons. And the same holds true for a private club. And nothing in this chapter shall apply to the sale or rental of any single family house by a private individual. The private individual owner does not own or have interest in more than 3 single family homes and does not use a real estate broker. For employment, if nothing in this chapter shall be interpreted to require employer to grant preferential treatment to any individual on account of an imbalance which may exist with respect to the total number or percentage of persons, i.e. there's not going to be gay affirmative action. And in public accommodations, the provisions of this section shall not apply to a private club, a place of accommodation owned or operated on behalf of a religious corporation, association, or society, or other establishment which is not in fact open to the public. Again, churches don't have to marry LGBT people. We changed this from because of to the motivating factor a few years ago, have a right to civil action, and the burden is on the plaintiff. So most of the arguments against this are religious in nature. The Missouri Human Rights Statute is very lenient with religious organizations. In fact, we had a conversation a couple of years ago with an attorney from the University of Illinois who went to Utah and helped them write the Utah Compromise, which blended religious freedom with civil rights protections. And that attorney, when she got on the call with us, said that she had looked at our existing human rights statute to find where we could improve it for religious freedom. And she came back and reported to us that our laws are already more favorable to religious freedom than Utah, the famed compromise on this. So I don't think they have anything to fear. This just makes sure that people like me can have a job, roof over my head, and stay at a hotel if I need to. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Senator Razer? What do you want to do? Okay, I know we have quite a few people here. How many people are here to testify in favor of Senator Razer's Senate Bill 60? Okay, that's quite a few. How many here to testify in opposition? Okay. We only have this room for a limited amount of time, and we have other bills that we have to hear. So I'm going to limit testimony. I know this is kind of an emotional subject, but hopefully we can keep our emotions in check and get through this hearing. All right, who's in favor of Senate Bill 60? Please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Elaine Bruzy. I use they, them pronouns and identify as gender non-binary. I'm a resident of St. Louis, Missouri, and support Senate Bill 60. I grew up not being accepted by my peers because I was different, not feminine enough for the girls and not tough enough for the boys. I think my grandfather recognized my difference and was very accepting. After all, he brought me my first baseball glove when I was 5, and for some reason figured I should know how to tie a necktie at age 10. He taught me well, as I rarely have to tie my tie more than once to get it the perfect length. I'm a retired educator, spending my entire career teaching, coaching, and being an administrator at the high school level. Those high school kids that were brave enough to be their authentic selves opened my eyes and helped me have a name for who I am and always have been, although I wasn't able to be my authentic self until I retired. Throughout the 25 years that I was with the same school district, I applied for numerous positions within the district and was unsuccessful. A few examples. I did not get a freshman baseball coaching position because I was female, even though the softball team was coached by 2 men. And I had coached softball at the college level. I had the same experience as 2 other individuals for 2 different supervising teacher positions, but I was a complainer, and I wanted to use another word, but I didn't think it was appropriate, and the 2 men were assertive, even though all 3 of us said the same thing. The largest impact came when I applied for administrator positions. I had all of the education, experience, certifications, and references necessary to move into that kind of position. I applied, interviewed, and was denied a position on 5 specific occasions. Several teachers that had been on the interview committees that I talked to later on indicated to me that the hiring folks felt like I didn't fit the role of a female administrator, didn't wear a dress and heels, I didn't have perfect hair, and of course, no makeup. I didn't project the image of what they thought a female leader should be. The opportunity for me to move on into an administrative position was denied because I was different. I didn't look like what their version of a female leader should look like. The sad thing was, I didn't realize I was different. This challenged me to go back to my classroom and excel at that. I was a health and PE teacher and had always dressed professionally. Who doesn't look professional teaching PE in a polo shirt and sweatpants? Come on. I excelled in the classroom and earned the State and Regional Health Educator of the Year Award and the Emerson Excellence in Teaching Award. That's a big deal in St. Louis, and they only give it to 1 or 2 teachers per school district per year. I worked with the committee and helped develop the health and PE standards for Missouri, including the state fitness test that is still used to this day. The female principal that I was working for recognized this, knew that I wanted to be an administrator, and placed me in a position to work in the classroom part of the day and do professional development for staff. She eventually hired me as an administrator. It was an amazing opportunity that I did not take lightly. She made me feel respected and valued as an educator. After retirement, I was able to be my authentic non-binary self. I was even able to work as a long-term substitute administrator in the same district for 5 years in 2 different buildings. I was extremely grateful that both principals accepted me as a gender non-binary person, used my pronouns correctly, and accepted my attire. I think it also helped the students that are part of the LGBT community being able to see a possibility or role model, someone they could identify with in a leadership position in the school. It is important that gender identity and sexual orientation be added to the Human Rights Statute. It would ensure that gay and transgender Missourians would not face discrimination for who they are and who they love. There are so many talented people in Missouri that have been denied opportunities due to their LGBTQ status. It's discouraging to them and unfortunate to those that could have used their talents in a particular job. I have LGBTQ friends that have been denied employment, senior housing, and other opportunities because in the state of Missouri, those people can be faced with discrimination. I realize we are all different. Wouldn't it be odd if we were all the same? Understanding differences, realizing that it's okay to be different, and that we all make valuable contributions to the success of Missouri is incredibly important. I encourage you to vote for Senate Bill 60. It's the right thing to do for Missouri. Thank you for listening to my testimony.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for this witness? Thank you for your testimony. Okay, we like to take a break and enter executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. We're in executive session. First bill I want to exec on is Senate Bill 10. It's Senator Eigel bill dealing with the red flag laws. I move that Senate Bill 10 be brought before the committee. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The bill is before the committee. Is there any discussion?
Sure. Mr. Chairman.
Senator?
Thank you. Just so I'm clear, this is the anti-red flag federal laws. We're going to nullify federal orders again, kind of like we did with SAPA that got thrown out a couple weeks ago and is now tied up in court. Is that my...
It's the, I don't know about all those other descriptions, but it's the anti-red flag law.
Yeah,
yes.
so I think it's a little disheartening, quite frankly, to even be having this sort of conversation given what happened 2 days ago in Nashville. But I'm more than happy to go ahead and have a vote right now, Mr. Chairman. Thanks.
So I told Senator that I would have a vote on it, and I'm having a vote on it.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I move that Senate Bill 10 be, I don't need to adopt it. So I move that Senate Bill 10 be voted out of committee, do pass. Do I, all those, Matt, please call the roll. I need a second. Okay. I have a second. Matt, please call the roll to vote out Senate Bill 10 out of committee, do pass.
Senate Bill 10, Senators Bernsketter.
Aye.
Aye. Searpoy. Beck. No. Black. Aye. Bratton. Aye. Huff.
No.
No. Razer. No. 3-3 does not carry.
By your vote of 3-3, the motion fails. It does not carry. I also want to bring up Senate Joint Resolution 39 from Senator Brown. It deals with property tax assessment freezes for seniors. I move that Senate Joint Resolution 39 be brought before the committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The bill is before the committee. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Seeing none. I move that Senate Joint Resolution 39 be voted out of committee, do pass. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Matt, please call the roll to vote out Senate Joint Resolution 39 out of committee, do pass.
Senate Joint Resolution 39. Senators Bernsketter.
Aye.
Aye. Searpoy. Beck. No. Black. Aye. Bratton. Aye. Huff.
Aye.
Aye. Razer. Aye. 5-1.
5-1.
5-1. Carry.
By your vote of 5-1, the motion carries. I move we exit executive session. Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. We're out of executive session. Thank you all for your patience. Next person in favor of Senator Razer's bill, please come forward.
Good morning to the chair of this committee and the members of this committee. I am Kendall Martinez, right? She, her. I am a former resident of Missouri, but I am here to express my appreciation to Senator Razer for leading this charge on SB60 MONA. This piece of legislation is very vital, not only to the LGBTQ community as a whole, but also for Missouri. When we discuss about the humanity of individuals, the right and the right to having a home, the ability to have various entities of accessibility to other provisions is something that is very, very important, not only for economic sense, but also in a social sense. Currently, there is a high number of individuals within the LGBTQIA community that have difficulty having housing due to laws that do not have gender identity or in sexual orientation under the protected entities. So, in retrospect, I urge this body to vote yes on this piece of legislation so then we can make Missouri thrive with the humanity of being able to live in a safe area. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody else in favor, please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Maharat Rory Picker-Niece, and I have the honor to serve as a religious leader and as executive director of the Jewish Community Relations Council in St. Louis. Guided by Jewish values, the JCRC advocates, educates, collaborates, and mobilizes action on issues important to our Jewish community, 60,000 strong in the St. Louis region. We're committed to pursuing religious tolerance, civic discourse, and social justice in St. Louis and beyond. I'm also, as many of you know, the proud mother of a transgender child, and I'm here today in support of SB60. The Bible in the book of Genesis describes all of humanity being created b'tselem Elohim, literally in the image of God. Every person is created as a reflection of the divine, and in turn, we can only understand God through looking at God's image. To discriminate against any person for how they were created, be it race, sex, gender, nationality, or religion, would be, to put it quite bluntly, a rejection of a piece of God himself. As a part of the Jewish community, we've experienced what it's like to be treated as the other. Our community has been kept out of universities and industries. We have faced discrimination and violence, and even today in the United States, the first country that has afforded the Jewish community total freedom and opportunity for unlimited success. Some Jews feel the need to hide their identities because of fear of attack for wearing head coverings or any symbols of Judaism, such as a Jewish star around their neck. no person should ever be made to feel ashamed or afraid because of who they are. It has been essential to our community that Missouri laws protect against discrimination based on religion. And adding to our statute non-discrimination protections in law to include protecting the specific classes of gender identity and sexual orientation only enhances the security of our faith communities and our entire region. The Missouri Non-Discrimination Act would ensure that more than 180,000 LGBTQ+ Missourians will be protected from being refused employment, housing, and public service just for who they are and for who they love. We live in a state where it is still legal, under Missouri law, to fire a hardworking employee, deny them an apartment, and deny them critical services like hospice care, simply because they are gay or transgender. To allow for this form of discrimination, especially when so many other forms of discrimination are prohibited, is a denial of this core belief that every person is a reflection of the divine. To allow for any individual to feel unsafe in our state should be an affront to every single person. And those of us who benefit from the protections already provided by our state should be speaking out the loudest to ensure that every person in need of these protections receive them. For these reasons and for so many more, we urge you to vote yes on SB60 to update the existing human rights statute to include sexual orientation and gender identity and make everybody equal under our current law. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Would you restate your name?
Rory Picker-Niece.
Okay. And I didn't mention that earlier, but most of you probably know, but you need to fill out a witness form and leave it at the desk, please. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Rory.
Thank you.
Anybody else come testify in favor, please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Allison Mitchell-McLean, and I reside in St. Louis County, and I'm here in support of Senate Bill 60. On November 20th, 2022, I sat in my parked car on the side of a road in St. Louis. It was Trans Day of Remembrance, and there was a candlelight vigil to be held in a memorial garden. My youngest child, my son, happens to be transgender, and I find it to be one of the least defining aspects of who he is. He is an absolute miracle to me in every way. While on this journey with him, I have been amazed and inspired by how courageously he proclaims exactly who he is and how boldly he insists that he is worthy of acceptance, love, and respect. I was at the vigil this particular night in November to remember those that we have lost because their worthiness was not fully understood by the perpetrators of violence. And on this particular day, though, I sat gripped by a shameful realization. I have long been aware that I enjoy a life free from discrimination because of how I happen to look, though admittedly I still have plenty of work to do in that area. I also know that I have lived a life of relative safety and security for that same reason. But the night before this day in the car, the tragic Colorado Springs Club Q massacre had transpired. And it was for the first time as I sat in that car, it occurred to me that my relative safety and life free from discrimination are also because it has been assumed by others that I am a straight person for the entirety of my life. And I am not, nor have I ever been. I knew at a very young age that I was different, but I grew up in a socially, religiously, and politically conservative family. Any hope that I had that me maybe being emotionally, romantically, and physically attracted solely to people of my own gender would be something that could be acceptable in this world was fully eradicated by the church in which I spent 18 years of my life, more time than even at school. So I buried this inconvenient knowledge about myself, and I set out to build a life as far from that truth as possible. I've been married to the same wonderful man for nearly 20 years. We have 2 children, the house, the dog, the picket fence, but for decades I have been drowning in shame and silence. And so over the course of the last year and a half, my husband and I have been working through understanding this truth about me for the first time in our marriage, and we still have not figured out exactly what it means for our family. It's definitely been a crazy time for both of us. But what is truly insane to me is that this admission of truth about myself now subjects me to discrimination that is legally permissible in the state of Missouri. That while the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act and marriage equality are the law of the United States, I could still be denied housing or employment in Missouri because of this truth. I have never experienced discrimination, not once in my life. Every school application, every job, every loan, every apartment, every home purchase, every moment that I have occupied a public space has been completely free of any discriminatory practice. This should continue to be true for me, regardless of who I happen to love, and it should be true for all Missourians. So I urge you to please vote yes on this bill and to update the Civil Rights Act in Missouri.
Thank you for your
very much.
testimony. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody else testify in favor, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Sam Licklider for Missouri Realtors in support of the bill. And I have my written witness form. We're not trusting the IT people today. And
That computer stuff is just a fad anyways.
I know. Yeah, that's sort of what I thought. First of all, I want to thank you for holding this hearing. I suspect you'll get some people that are upset with you, but these things happen. And this is one of the things the General Assembly is supposed to do. They're supposed to take up difficult issues in the community. And you're only the second person that's ever said they couldn't hear me. I mean, you know, but take up issues that are important to parts of the community, not all of the community, and work through them. Our position is real simple. We think it's first of all, we think the whole discrimination thing is really bad. Kind of dumb, actually. But we feel it is an economic development issue. Missouri spends a lot of time, effort, and energy trying to get people to move into the state, bring jobs to the state. Missouri Realtors just sent 8 people to a huge meeting in France looking for international people to come in. Not sure they're going to be able to buy a plant, but, well, they can buy the plant, they just can't buy the ground. It's simple. It should be easy, although I went through this back in the 70s with the original one, and I can assure you it was neither simple nor easy, and a couple of times there were almost fistfights. And you can see the problems they had in the bill as it's currently there, because there is a provision which we did not like, but it survived anyway, which allows a person selling their own house to discriminate. I think they'll run into some problems with federal law, but under Missouri law, apparently you can discriminate when you're selling your own property, not using a real estate agent. That's basically all I have.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions? Senator Huff, go ahead.
I know it's not completely related, but since we're talking about discriminating on the basis of selling property, where does that leave us with the whole foreign land ownership debate? And Sam, we can talk about this some other time, but I mean, I feel like we're kind of discriminating against entire countries at some point, but you know, whatever. You don't have to answer that, just
Well,
maybe on a tangent.
Sir, you know our position
I'm aware.
on foreign land. I mean, it's like I told somebody years ago, what's the problem? They can't take it home with them.
Thank you, Sam.
You know, they get to be too sassy, you can expropriate it and send them home without their land or their money.
Any other questions? Or any other comments?
No comments right
All right, thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Anybody else testify in favor of Senate Bill 60, please come forward.
Chairman and gentlemen of the committee. My name is Cassie Brown. I'm the Executive Director of the National Association of Social Workers, Missouri Chapter. First, we want to heartily thank the sponsor of this bill for bringing forward a reasonable bill that would put Missouri in line with over half of our nation that already by law or explicit interpretation protect their LGBTQ+ citizens from discrimination in housing, hiring, and public accommodations. In 2022, a significant majority of Americans who are LGBTQ, 70%, reported discrimination in their daily lives, including in the workplace, in public accommodations, and so on. In a 2020 survey from the Center for American Progress, more than 1 in 3 LGBTQ Americans reported facing discrimination of some kind within the past year. Mental health concerns and homelessness is high in this community. This leads to mental health disparities, pain, and burden for Missourians, and this is entirely avoidable. This is a workforce issue, as was mentioned. This is an issue that college students look at when considering whether or not to study at our fine colleges and universities. Professionals, individuals, and families consider when looking at whether to stay or leave or come and share their skills in Missouri. This is an issue that impacts all people, not just LGBTQ people. I remind you that families break up because their children don't feel that they can remain in a state where their ability to participate in public life is not protected. People leave, maybe some of your people, some of my people. For these reasons, NASW Missouri proudly supports SB60, and I will stand for your questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody else testify in favor, please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Cameron Nielsen. My pronouns are she, her. I am a cisgender white woman and Missouri realtor. I want you each to first take a moment to assess what you think you know about me based on the way that I present. If past experience is any indication, I'd wager that very few of you assumed that I was a queer woman. Being an extremely straight passing bisexual woman has allowed me a unique peek behind the curtain of straight privilege. I've gotten the opportunity to see firsthand the way that I'm treated simply navigating the world with romantic partners and the way that experience changes based on the gender of my partner. So often when discussing discrimination, variables are used as excuses to diminish the validity of the claims. Folks will say, oh, it wasn't the same situation. This or that was different about that person or their situation. To that I say, I am me, one person with one situation and one set of lived experiences, and can personally attest to the difference in the way my life is affected by whether or not my queerness is known. My intersectional identity as a queer woman and Missouri realtor makes this bill extremely close to home for me. The unfortunate reality is that there is a lack of diversity in our local real estate community. Out of the over 700 realtors licensed in Columbia alone, over 96% of them are straight cisgender folks. This is not representative of the beautiful diversity locally or statewide. The lack of diversity in our profession directly impacts diversity in home ownership, an opportunity that every person deserves. The reality is that much of the discrimination we see is bred from ignorance. It is not until we prioritize equal treatment and enforce consequences for failure to adhere that we will begin to see folks make the effort to educate themselves and these inequalities begin to shift. In 2011, the Realtor Code of Ethics was amended to prohibit discrimination based on one's sexual orientation, and again in 2013 to include gender identity. As realtors handle approximately 86% of the purchase and sale transactions, I believe that we can safely defer to their guidelines and follow suit. In a climate where our community is being targeted from every direction, the necessity of this bill cannot be overstated. When we talk about the LGBTQIA+ issues, what is most disheartening to me is the vitriol and hateful language that is used against our community. Messages of hate, anger, and disgust towards our community and the individuals in it for simply being a part of it. I am constantly impressed by the love our community continues to show in the midst of hatred being spewed from every direction. From our queer business owners who are actively being harassed and protested, their livelihoods put in jeopardy simply for being who they are, but who will walk out to the protesters and on a hot day offer them a bottle of water or a cup of coffee in the cold, who preach to others to always lead with love. We are taught from a young age to treat others how we wish to be treated and told that we will reap what we sow. I have been waiting 27 years for this to be true, and my hope is that this bill will be one step towards receiving the love we put into the communities we call home. Thank you to all the queer Missourians and allies here today making our voices be heard. We will lead with love, but we will do so loud and proud. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody else testify in favor, please come forward. Please state your name and go ahead with your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Hannah Dolan, and I'm a proud 23-year-old lesbian working and residing here in Cole County in mid-Missouri. I was born in St. Charles, spent my early life in Lake St. Louis, and was raised in Jefferson City, Missouri. I was raised Catholic, Republican, and everything my parents dreamed of. I excelled in school, my early professional life, and on the outside, you wouldn't know I'm different, but I've always known I was. There were speckles and moments of truth in my youth, but I had no representation of sapphic relationships. I had no idea what could be for me, but I knew the image of what should be, a man and a woman, was not for me. Once I came out as a lesbian, a long journey of self-discovery in itself, the fight was far from over. Myself and my community are constantly at the risk when we hold hands as we're walking down the street or display any affection in public. When I meet new people, I leave out my pronouns and my past partners for fear of being treated differently. I worry about raising a pride flag in my lawn or placing a sticker on my bumper for fear of hate crimes. There's this saying that as a part of the community, you are coming out every day of your life, and this is very true. I want to belong here, but I track the current legislation and fear that living and loving here could lead to violence and disadvantages to myself and my community. This act would solidify protections for my community, allowing us to reach our true potential. The Missouri Non-Discrimination Act would make Missouri a safer state for all Missourians of all gender identities and sexualities. Please meet your constituents. Listen to our voices. I promise we are here. I implore you to support this act, and in doing so, show your support and love for over 180,000 LGBTQ plus Missourians across this state. If we want Missouri to be great, show me that we can open the doors and welcome my colorful and vibrant community into the Midwest. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Anybody else testify in favor?
Mr. Chairman, Shannon Cooper today representing the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce as well as the City of Kansas City. Go on record in support of the bill, maybe bring a little different perspective. I'm a straight white guy that doesn't understand much about this. I would try and say LQHGB, but I know I'll mess it up, and Nancy's listening. She'd be upset. I really don't care what Greg's sexuality is. He's a good guy, and as an employer, if he can get the job done, that's who I want working for me. And that kind of shows what the Kansas City business community thinks about these issues. Currently, we're about 90,000 employees short in the Kansas City region. 90,000 folks could come to Kansas City and get a job if they're qualified. And their gender and their sexuality really does not matter to the folks out there hiring them. We just want good workers who are going to show up and get the job done. We're a welcoming community, and we think it is well past time for these laws to be changed where folks who are considering moving and want to come to the Midwest feel welcomed and feel accepted. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So, as an elected official, what kind of job do you think Greg would be qualified for?
Probably one where you can do a lot of talking.
Maybe he could have your
But, you know,
job. Maybe he could do your job.
He might do a better job at my job. So, but you know, he's always welcome to come out to the farm too if he wants to get out of the city and come to Henry County and work on the cows. I'd be glad to have him. Again, I like Greg as an individual. I appreciate his work ethic, and his personal life is none of my concern.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else testify in favor, please come forward.
Good morning, Senators. I'm Eleanor DePrey. I'm an English teacher. I've been teaching since 1989, and I've been a Missourian since 1990. My husband and I both came here for training, and we chose to stay to have our family. We got attached to our life in St. Louis, which for us has been a great place to live. And we have given back to Missouri through our decades of service as school teachers. Our two kids were born and raised here. Now they're both in their early 20s, living out of state for the present, one to establish a career and the other to finish college. But they love this state. They love their home, and they love their dad and me, and we love them mightily. We'd like to grow old near them. But now I'm thinking about spending my retirement elsewhere. Something I'd never imagined. Honestly, I've started looking at job listings in other states now, and I have 6 to 10 more working and earning years before I even consider retiring. But I crave a safe place for every member of my family. Until recently, I assumed that place could be Missouri. Our younger kid, a college senior, is a gentle soul with eyes as round as an owl's. A scholar, an artist, an empath, also the top-ranking student of German language in Missouri in high school, got a free trip out of that. A spiritual seeker who sometimes leads prayer services at college, a deep, loving listener, a great hugger, and our kid is trans. Over their recent spring break trip home to St. Louis, I asked them where they might go next after they graduate in 7 weeks. Their answer? Somewhere where I'll have human rights. Over their recent they have to watch the national legislative map right now to figure out where that could be. Where will I have human rights as an unsettled question for my college senior currently eclipses their considerations of what they will do when they get there. And unfortunately, that makes sense in terms of their safety. Can you imagine? Really? Can you imagine, if you are a parent, the situation my husband and I are in as the parents of a 21-year-old Missourian who is ready to launch their adult life and whose state leadership is effectively saying, nope, not you, not anymore. Missouri needs Mona. My family needs Mona right now. We need it as a sign of good faith. We need it as a sign of hope. We need it as a promise of a Missouri where compassion wins. Where all citizens, including all LGBTQ citizens, are protected. Where people who are of Missouri can keep on loving Missouri and know that Missouri will protect them from discrimination so they can work, live, and thrive here at home. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody else testify in favor, please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Danielle Meert. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from Ellisville, Missouri, and I'm thrilled to be here this morning to testify in support of SB60, the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act. I'm the proud parent of a thriving 16-and-a-half-year-old transgender kiddo who is a geography whiz, according to his classmates in the geography club. He loves our cats. He has the most hilarious sense of humor and the biggest, most empathetic heart that any parent could hope for in their child. My entire family is from Missouri, and I hope to stay here. As a single mom, I moved back here from out of state nearly 15 years ago to raise my child, surrounded by my family and friends. And my kiddo is one of the lucky ones. My Catholic family, his school, and teachers all support him. They all use his name and pronouns. Over spring break, he applied for and was hired for his first job. And he's been receiving gender-affirming health care at WashU's Gender Center since 2019. And I pray that his life here in Missouri continues to be filled with joy, love, and acceptance, along with all LGBTQ youth and adults. I pray that all parents have the same support raising their child and the same ability to follow best care medical practices according to leading medical authorities as my family. I pray that all Missourians have the same access to safe housing, secure employment, the same opportunities to participate fully in society, starting with representation in the curriculum and participation in youth sports with their friends. In the past 4 legislative sessions, my son testified in opposition to more than a dozen pieces of anti-LGBTQ legislation that would harm him, his friends, his healthcare team, and his family. As a 7th grader, he first testified in opposition to Missouri's Don't Say Gay bill, like the one that recently passed in Florida. Instead of banning books that would represent my child, there should be books in our libraries that honor his integrity and his courage to live off his body, chooses gay bill, like the one that recently passed in Florida. Instead of banning books that would represent my child, there should be books in our libraries that honor his integrity and his courage to live off his body, chooses to celebrate all Missourians, especially those brave. If you don't like it here, leave. Or would Jesus open his arms and welcome the least of these? I pray that you're listening.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions?
Good morning. I'm Reverend Jennifer Harris Dalt. I live in Maryland Heights and I pastor a church in the city of St. Louis, and I'm here to joyfully support SB60. My faith tradition teaches that all are created in the very image of God, and that one of the 2 most important commandments is to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. We have not been loving our neighbors while 180,000 Missourians living in every single county of the state have been at risk of losing their jobs, their housing, or being turned away from public accommodations simply for being who they are. No one should have to live life afraid of losing a job because a boss doesn't like their partner. No one should have to fear becoming homeless because the landlord learns that they are transgender. No one should worry that they won't receive proper medical care because a hospital employee decides that their religious beliefs prevent them from treating a gay person's heart condition. No one should have to worry that they or their loved one will be denied hospice care in their final days of life for being queer. It's time that we recognize our responsibility to one another, that we recognize that someone's sexual orientation or gender identity is not a valid reason to discriminate, that we take this step to allow Missouri's LGBTQ+ population to be safe in their home and their jobs.
Anybody else testify in favor, please come forward.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Amy Quo Hammerman. I am submitting this testimony on behalf of the National Council. We do so through community service, advocacy, education, and philanthropy to improve the quality of life for women, children, and families in Missouri. And we've been doing so since 1895. We have been here year after year, for several years, testifying in support of this specific bill. More than 180,000 LGBTQ adults in Missouri would benefit from expanding the non-discrimination law to include sexual orientation and gender identity. But all Missourians would benefit because it would make our state more attractive to companies and young adults starting their professional lives. We want to attract the best and the brightest. And I cannot imagine a young adult moving to a state where their job might be threatened because of who they are. The Missouri Non-Discrimination Act is good business. It's the right thing to do. And we would like for this to be the last time that we have to testify on this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else testify in favor, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Jay Hardenbrook. I'm the Advocacy Director for AARP here in the state of Missouri. We are a social change organization with a membership of over 700,000 in the state of Missouri alone. One of the voices that we really want to bring to this discussion is that as people age, their options become limited, and especially for a lot of members of the LGBTQ community, they might not have a family anymore. Their family may have disowned them. and they should at least get to choose where they live, who they get to love, and who will be able to provide care to them as they age or become disabled. Oftentimes, that's not your family anymore, but these families become diverse tribes, oftentimes, of people who love and care for each other, older caring for younger, and younger caring for older as they start to need more care in their lives. So we are very much in favor of this legislation. We thank the senator for bringing it forward, and again, we also hope that this is the last time that we have to testify on this legislation and that we can move forward.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else testify in favor, please come forward.
Good morning. Oh, everybody disappeared. My name is Teresa Nichols. I'm retired. Just recently, I was a senior immigration officer and congressional liaison for Homeland Security. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm here to testify for SB60. I was born and raised in Kansas City. I've lived all over the world, but came back to my home state of Missouri about 20 years ago. I retired less than a year ago and wanted to get involved with what is happening here in the Missouri legislature. I've been monitoring it over the last few years, and I've grown increasingly alarmed about my family and friends' safety and well-being in Missouri. Not just those living in Missouri, but also the safety of my family and friends that come and visit. At this time, legislators are introducing and passing laws that will hurt our children and our families and our communities. We as parents and experts in all fields know that for a fact. It's a scary, traumatic time for anyone who is different. It's a very threatening atmosphere out there. I do not trust that the LGBTQ community will be protected from discrimination of all sorts. That's why I'm here. I'm trying to protect my children and my grandchildren. It's crucial to pass SB60 at this time. I have 3 adult children and 6 grandchildren. We enjoy a big, happy, loving, diverse family. Of my 6 grandchildren, 3 are adopted, 2 are Asian American, 3 are African American, 1 is trans, and my son is gay. I want each of them to feel equally protected by the state of Missouri. I want them to know that they will all have the same equal rights under the law. My grandchildren aren't going to all be in the same room and we decide that one of them isn't protected by Missouri. What am I going to do with that? If you are all talking law, the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment means that states must treat all their citizens equally. States can't favor men over women, whites over blacks, or heterosexuals over gays. I want my LGBTQ friends and family to feel welcome wherever we go, restaurants, bakeries, sports, games. That's what this law would do. This law would say that all my grandchildren can live and work and raise a family or just visit Missouri and do so without the threat of discrimination, just because of who they are or who they love. That's the message I would like to send to my children and grandchildren. This is the America we strive for. This is the Missouri we strive for. This is surely what God had in mind when he said, love your neighbor as yourself. I'm begging you to please pass SBC 60.
Thank you for your testimony. Anybody else testify in favor, please come forward.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Rachel Scholl. I live in St. Louis, Missouri in North County, born and raised. I am a white woman, cis woman. I am married to a man, and I've had a wonderful marriage for more than 13 years, and we have 5 kids. Part of my story is that 2 years ago, I had hair halfway down my back. Last year, I shaved my head completely bald to fulfill a vow. And that was a very wonderful, deep spiritual experience for me. But you might imagine that as a woman, I'd be called sir, or sometimes I would notice people looking at me. Some weird vibes from people sometimes, or just get weird questions or weird reactions from people, and shook up a little bit. I was walking in St. Charles with a friend one time in the eve of men, young men, and they started yelling at me and my in St. Charles with a friend one time in the eve of men, young men, and they started yelling at me and my friend. It made me understand more what some people are going through who present differently. Just extremely grateful and understanding like my physical safety from the trans and LGBTQ plus community. Continuing to press forward and victory in the midst of animosity and because of how they present or because of their sexual orientation, they're alive and safe because of other people's sufferings. And I'm also grateful to the friendships and relationships that I have with trans and queer, who just everyone. Like that, I was thinking about point B. So they have a bus, right? And they get kind of distracted and they point A to point B if we don't have this nice engine, and they kind of get off society. It's like, what is the society? What are we supposed to be doing in community? About B. So they have a bus, right? And they get kind of distracted and they point A to point B if we don't have this nice engine, and they kind of get off society. It's like, what is the society? What are we supposed to be doing in community with each other? So it doesn't have to look just a certain kind of way. It should be the goal of really bringing peace, shalom, goodness, healing. About B. So they have a bus, right? And they get kind of distracted and they point A to point B if we don't have this nice engine, and they kind of get off society. It's like, what is the society? What are we supposed to be doing in community with each other? So it doesn't have to look just a certain kind of way. It should be the goal of really bringing peace, shalom, goodness, healing. About B. So they have a bus, right? And they get kind of distracted and they point A to point B if we don't have this nice engine, and they kind of get off society. It's like, what is the society? What are we supposed to be doing in community with each other? So it doesn't have to look just a certain kind of way. It should be the goal of really bringing peace, shalom, goodness, healing. About be, so they have a bus, right? And they get kind of distracted, and they point A to point B. If we don't have this nice engine, you know, and they kind of get off society. It's like, what is the society? What are we supposed to be doing in community with each other?
I think, how many more people do we have testify in favor? So next one to come up, in favor.
Hello, is this on? Do I have to press the button? Hello, my name is Chelsea Friels. I'm a junior at Clayton High School. In the past 2 years, my time has increasingly been devoted to activities has been optional. When I've been at the Capitol before, there's been a sense of inevitable. We're here, and we know that you guys are going to vote against us. It's probably going to happen again today. History, not the vote. It keeps my spirits up. And in recent years, human rights as a transgender person is mutually exclusive with this committee's operation. Hey, you know, have your rights. And I'm glad that you are holding this hearing. Thanks for holding it. Everybody here today is to get more rights. We're trying to be treated like human beings, and I thank you for giving us the opportunity to testify in our support. I'm sure that the coming speakers will have stories that mirror mine, where coming out to acceptance and support makes all the difference in somebody's life. Treating with LGBT people with respect and love is morally right, and I'm proud to be on the right side of history. And I hope that today I'll be on the right side of the vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions? None. Thank you. Anybody to testify in favor, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and member of the committee. My name is Jackie Barget. I'm a registered lobbyist for the City of St. Louis and Mayor Jones. First, I want to thank Senator Razer again for introducing this bill, hopefully for the last time. The City of St. Louis is a very diverse community. We are very, very proud of that. That's why we took this step in 2010 to pass an ordinance protecting the LGBTQIA community in the City of St. Louis. We would encourage the entire state to do so to ensure that all Missourians can live and work freely and safely. And I also, to keep time short, I attached a letter from Mayor Jones that I'm sure you guys will read.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Questions? No questions. Testify in favor, please come forward.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The ACLU of Missouri just wants to go on record in support.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Question? Did you, you didn't state your name.
Tori Schaefer.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Casey Nail, here today representing Empower Missouri, the state's largest anti-poverty group. We want to go on record in strong support. We will also be submitting written testimony that very eloquently says that you should not be kicked out of your house because of your sexual orientation or gender identity. So thank you to Senator Razer for bringing the bill forward, and thank you for
I think that was
hearing.
eloquent enough.
Thank you.
Any questions? No. Testify in favor, please come forward.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Jamie Howard. I'm a 29-year-old resident of Jefferson City. I'm a veteran of the Missouri Army National Guard, a former law enforcement officer, including serving as a deputy sheriff here in Cole County. And I'm here in support of Senate Bill 60. One of the reasons that I am here, I had written something up, but I've decided to change it. Long time. National Guard, a former law enforcement officer, including serving as a deputy sheriff here in Cole County. And I'm here in support of Senate Bill 60. One of the reasons that I am here, I had written something up, but I've decided to change it. Long time. My grandfather served as a circuit court judge for Governor Hearns. A large portion of my family talked about leaping, and moving to other states. U.S. Attorney General Robert Kennedy, he said, "We must continue to prove rights and human dignity to anyone. Discrimination in any form is an abhorrent, and the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act would add to our current laws protection for LGBTQ plus community or individuals from discrimination and decency. It's also essential for the economic and social prosperity discriminated against, and it's time that our state takes a stand against that discrimination." Discrimination Act.
Questions? Seeing none. Anybody else testify in favor?
Thank Choice, Missouri. It is at our core belief is in expanding the agency, aka ensuring that all Missourians, not just teachers, free from discrimination and violence, Missourians from
To meet you. I'm Sister Nancy. This is wonderful. Just to say that I really believe that we're on the wrong side of history, the legislature, with Dr. Daniel Helniak, who in '94 wrote the book, and it really says nothing. It's not concerned with it at all. To the fact that this would really help Missouri, and I hope you.
Your testimony. Any questions? Your testimony. Any questions?
Thanks. I am Shira Berkwood. I think to be brief, I'll say that LGBTQ people in the state still face discrimination this past year, including 3 and 5 transgender Americans. Currently in our state, one and evicted from their house on Tuesday, all simply because of who they are. We can promote Missouri as the premier home for talented workers, growing businesses, entrepreneurial innovation, and third year in a row, we can send the message that LGBTQ people don't belong in our.
Anybody else testify in favor? Please come forward.
Mr. Chairman.
Entrepreneurial innovation, and third year in a row, we can send the message that LGBTQ people don't belong in our.
Anybody else testify in favor? Please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, in support of Senate Bill 60, we thank the sponsor for bringing this forward again and for the bill. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none.
Kayla Joy. I'm here representing Metro Trans Umbrella Group, where my team and I serve the transgender community in Greater St. And to say my name, I'm again before my paperwork, before the judge, before the court order, yet it wasn't until my embossed seal from Missouri, transgender woman. My name, my identity is subject to questioning. The most well-intentioned and curious people. But I expect discrimination. I still expect and to say my name, I'm again before my paperwork, before the judge, before the court order. Identity is subject to questioning. The most well-intentioned and curious people. But I expect discrimination. I still expect it because I live in Missouri, where I ask you, who does the Missouri legislature value? Who an official document that declared it to be my name, my proof, my evidence? They do not have to use my name. They can discriminate against me. I'm protected. And truly, the legislature's actions up until now have let me know that I'm not seen, I'm not cared about. They can discriminate against me. I'm protected. And truly, the legislature's actions up until now have let me know that I'm not seen, I'm not cared about. Use your power responsibly to recognize and declare my gender identity, my trans community's gender.
Any questions? Anybody else testify in favor, please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Justin Ferguson. I have the opportunity to speak. I was sitting in the Senate gallery a few weeks ago for another event and noticed an inscription carved on the wall above the chamber that said, "Nothing is politically right, which is morally wrong." I couldn't help but wonder to myself if some of our senators ever bothered to look up at those words and consider their own words and action in relation to them. I would hope so, but some days it's hard to imagine. You're probably wondering what this has to do with Senate Bill 60. Why is this straight, privileged, middle-aged white guy up here talking at me about morals? Well, it's exactly because I grew up in rural northwest Missouri farm country, attending a Baptist church every Sunday, the exact slice of the world that most of you purport to represent, that I feel like I should be up here speaking. My upbringing taught me a lot about morality, ideas like empathy, justice, compassion, and somewhere in there was this crazy idea of caring for everyone equally, regardless of their place or position in life. A phrase which is repeated in multiple chapters in the Bible says, "Judge not, lest ye be judged," which, not coincidentally, is the exact sentiment that this bill would codify into law. Normally, I'm a firm believer in not using the Bible as a basis for laws. But in this particular case, the concept of not judging our fellow humans for what they are, what they look like, or who they love is not something that originated in the Bible, but it's a basic tenet of human morality that just happens to appear in the Bible, albeit one that it seems like society needs to be reminded of far too often. I could sit here all days and list off ways that conscious and unconscious prejudice destroys the lives and livelihoods of LGBTQ citizens and others daily, but you've heard all that before in previous years and from the previous speakers. I can't produce a statistic that is magically going to change your mind. I can't cite a case that's going to magically make you say, "Oh yeah, that law is a good idea." What I can do, though, is ask you, when you go to vote on this bill, to think about those words chiseled into the wall of the Senate chamber and ask to yourself, is allowing discrimination of any sort to happen in our state morally right? If your answer is no, and I certainly hope it is, then you must know in your heart that not voting in favor of this bill and passing this bill is also politically wrong. In summary, I support what is right morally and politically, which is passing the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act out of committee and codifying it into law, and so should you. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Anybody else testify in favor? Opposition? No. I'm sorry, there's one more testify in favor.
Hello, my name is Micah Ballard. I'm the Community Center Manager at Metro Trans Umbrella Group, and I'm from St. Louis. And I am a transgender man here in support of SB60. In 2019, I was employed at Washington University School of Medicine. At the time I was hired, I identified as a woman. In the summer of 2019, I realized I was transgender, and I began the journey of coming out and starting my gender transition. Part of that journey meant coming out to my employer. I was terrified. I had no idea how my direct supervisor would respond, how my coworkers would respond, but thankfully, because of Title IX and federal non-discrimination laws, I knew that my job was protected, that I couldn't be fired for coming out as a... But thanks to federal anti-discrimination laws, I knew that no matter how my coworkers responded, my livelihood could not be taken from me. It would be safe if I came out as transgender. On top of the social ramifications, the fear of my job, my only source of income. Transgender Missourians deserve to feel safe and secure. Adding state-level protections for trans Missourians would ensure employees cannot lose their jobs and incomes for simply existing in public.
Anybody else in favor? Opposition, please come forward.
Good morning, Chair Burns-Getter and committee. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you this morning. My name is Timothy Faber. I am the legislative liaison for the Missouri Baptist Convention, representing close to 2,000 churches across Missouri, and I've been an ordained minister for close to 4 decades. I had not intended to bring up the Bible this morning because there's plenty in this bill to discuss otherwise, but since other witnesses have, let me remind you that the Bible does indeed speak of homosexuality. Leviticus 18, Deuteronomy 5, Romans 1, and there's other places as well. I'd be happy to discuss those with you at a later time when we have more time, if you would like. In regard to being created in the image of God, yes, all people were and are created in the image of God. However, what my fellow witnesses have failed to mention or remind us of is that God created us, first of all, without sin. And since sin has entered the world, the image of God in man has been corrupted in all ways. Even heterosexual relationships have been corrupted because of sin. Our creative abilities, our cognitive abilities, everything about us has been corrupted by sin. But again, that's something I would be happy to discuss with each of you at a later time. The fact of the matter is, this bill cannot be separated from religion, and particularly religious liberty. The United States Constitution and the Missouri State Constitution both guarantee the freedom of religion and the freedom of speech. This bill sets up a host of conflicts against such freedoms. Perhaps you've heard of Jack Phillips in Colorado, who has twice been sued by the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. The first case went all the way to Supreme Court, where he won. The second case is on its way there. Also out of Colorado is the case of 303 Creative regarding freedom of speech. That case was heard by the Supreme Court of the United States in December, and a ruling is expected in June of this year, but the court in questioning seems to be leaning in favor of the free speech and against the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. You see, our constitutional rights supersede statutory rights. Second, as I have mentioned, if this bill is passed, there would be an increase in lawsuits, and the caseload of the Missouri Commission on Human Rights would increase exponentially. This will create an even greater backlog of cases for the MCHR staff than what they already have, and more expense for the citizens of Missouri to defend a case that will ultimately be lost. Might I remind you that the oath of office for a commissioner of the Missouri Commission on Human Rights is, I, fill in the blank, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Missouri, and that I will faithfully demean myself in the office of Commissioner of the Missouri Commission on Human Rights. Since that is the oath of a commissioner, do you think that they would direct their staff to do otherwise. This problem is also compounded by the wording of this bill. On page 3, line 51, are the words presumed or assumed discrimination. Thus, the bill is not dealing with reality, it is dealing with presumptions and assumptions. Who is going to determine the presumption or assumption of another person? Is it the one who has allegedly been discriminated against, or is it the one who allegedly did the discriminating? I contend that no one can presume or assume to know the thoughts of another without clear and compelling evidence, not just presumption or assumption. Additionally, lines 55 and 56 go on to state that regardless of whether a presumption or assumption as to such characteristic is correct. So if a person can file a complaint of discrimination, even if someone else's presumption or assumption is incorrect, what kind of justice is that? And then on page 6, beginning of section 20, lines 30 and 31, state one's actual or perceived emotional or physical attraction. Again, how can a perceived attraction be adjudicated? Because of these issues in the bill itself as written, and because of the aforementioned religious liberties and freedom of speech issues as superseded by in our Constitution, I strongly encourage you to vote no on this bill. And I'll
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Senator Beck, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
So, Doctor, a couple questions. One, so I'm taking your stance here is that LGBTQ folks shouldn't have the same rights as I have to, be not discriminated against. Is that what you're saying based on the Bible, or is, what exactly are you saying here?
I'm saying that an employer or a landlord should also have rights in how they conduct their business.
So they should be able to discriminate against someone because of their sexual orientation, gender identity?
They can discriminate on someone based on any number of factors.
So that's okay, but I mean, you're just saying that's okay. That's their right.
It's their right.
Okay. You mentioned in your talk, you said they, the Human Rights Commission, you said they.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you mean we? Aren't you correctly? Are you not the chair of the Human Rights Commission?
I am currently the chair, yes.
Okay, so you should have probably said we instead of they.
Okay.
Okay, so currently, how many cases are before the Human Rights Commission?
I do not know that off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I can look that up.
Do you even have a quorum?
The Missouri Commission on Human Rights does not currently have a quorum.
You only have 4 out of the 10 members, right?
There's actually supposed to be 11, but it's correct that
Is it 11? Oh, I thought I counted 10, but I thought it was the 8 plus the chairman and the at-large member.
There's 8, one for each congressional district,
Yeah,
plus 3
the
at
chairman, you're the chairman, correct?
Right, but I'm not a separate person. I'm considered the commissioner from Congressional District 4. So you would have one for each 8 congressional districts plus 3 at-large members.
Oh, 3 at-large members. Okay, I was just went through the website. It looked like 1 at-large was empty. But in neither case you don't have quorum. Is there only 4 members currently?
Correct.
Correct. So there is not a lot of cases coming. I mean, so we're not really enforcing any type of human rights.
The Human Rights Commission has a staff that deals with the cases, and then the commissioners only deal with cases that cannot be resolved by staff.
So is there any of those that are outstanding that need to be taken care of that since you don't have quorum?
There is a backlog of cases, I can tell you that. I do not know how many that is.
All right. So, Doctor, I was just curious of that because when you come here and you said you're from the liaison for the Missouri Baptist, but you also have a dual role. That's pretty important to what we're talking about here today. And I think that was
right.
In my mind. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's kind of disingenuous to say they instead of we.
I did not come to represent the Missouri Commission on Human Rights.
But you brought them up first, and that's why I thought I'd bring that up. Thank you, sir.
I brought them up because the oath of office of a commissioner, which is public record, anybody can see that.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anybody else in opposition, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Ray McCarty, President of Associated Industries in Missouri, representing employers in the state. And I wanted to bring to you a couple of things for your consideration as you consider this bill. We are opposed to the bill as written. There is, we have a policy that encourages companies to have policies that are welcoming and inclusive, and in fact include sexual orientation and gender identity. But it's different to have a policy than it is to have a law. The U.S. Supreme Court has held that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 does include sexual orientation and gender identity and protections under sex discrimination, which means that already employers that have more than 15 employees must follow that and are not able to discriminate against sexual orientation or gender identity, as well as race, age, and all the other protected classes. There are approximately 55% of businesses that have less than 4 employees, and they aren't affected by what you're doing today or what the U.S. Supreme Court already did. So 55% of employers that have less than 4 employees wouldn't be covered by this or the federal act. But there are 20% of employers that are in that 6 to 15 employee range that would be covered by the Missouri Human Rights Act that are not covered under the federal act. Those are the ones you're talking about today. Those are also the 6 to 15 employee pool are probably those who have less time to spend learning about trying to treat people respectfully, and also those employers who may have an employee that makes an offhanded comment that could, even if they get fired, the employer could be held as being discriminatory. So for that reason, we're concerned about that. And then finally, the other reason to make this change, put this into the Missouri Human Rights Act, is to make a state-level case, which would mean the case would go to state courts rather than federal courts. Remember, you can still take the case if you have more than 15, if you work for an employer that has more than 15 employees, it would go to federal court. Putting it in the Missouri Human Rights Act means it would be, these cases would be able to go to state court, and it's no secret that there are favorable plaintiff pools in cities like St. Louis that may view these claims differently than a federal court. So that may be another reason why people want to put this in the Missouri Human Rights Act. But for the people who are employing more than 15 employees, they're already covered under the federal act. I would also tell you that in this environment, representing employers who are trying to find anyone to fill positions, I suspect that most employers would be to their detriment to discriminate against anyone for any reason. Right now, employers are trying to find people who will take jobs to keep the doors open. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions? Senator Beck, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. So, good morning. So, we codify federal law around here all the time, and I don't see the reason why we wouldn't want to do this here. This is also about having being able to get a place to live or whatever without discrimination. The same rights that you and I have, that we can go do whatever, and they can't refuse us, right? We can't be refused for housing, correct?
I'm not sure. I don't know if the federal decision that came down from the U.S. Supreme Court applies to any of that. I honestly don't know.
Yeah. So I just don't know. Like I said, we codify federal law here all the time, and I don't see what the problem with that would be to do that, especially when we see, we have it both ways. Sometimes we talk about activist judges. Or I say we, I mean folks around here talk about activist judges at the federal level. Why don't we just control our own destiny in a state and make this, become law?
Right. No, I've just told you why we're opposed to it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody else in opposition? Informational purposes? That concludes the hearing. Senator Razer, any closing remarks?
Just very quickly, Mr. Chairman. It's often asked if this still happens, if people are still discriminated against. It's 2023. I think the last two witnesses, I just want to respond a little bit. You are still free, thanks to the Human Rights Commission and this bill, to think that I'm going to hell. You're free to think that. You are free to discriminate against me if you run a very small business, if you want to sell your house and do it yourself. There are lots of religious exemptions already written into the existing Human Rights Act. I'd also say that we shouldn't have to learn how to be respectful That is something that probably we should have been taught a long time ago. And so whether or not this still happens, I would just say 2 years ago, the mere mention of LGBT history was evicted from this very building by members of the legislature. And I would ask if you think those members would rent me a house. I would say they probably wouldn't. I'm guessing you're chairman now.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Next up is Senator Razer, not Senator Razer, Senator Holly Rehder, property conveyance, Senate Bill 505.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am Senator Holly Thompson Rehder from Southeast Missouri, and this bill is a land conveyance, and it's actually my very first land conveyance bill, so I hope y'all don't have very hard questions, but if you do, we have folks from the department that will be able to answer them much better than I. So in Iron County, we have a bridge that was replaced over Stouts Creek, and we did that ahead of getting the easement conveyed because the bridge needed replaced immediately. And so what this bill would do is convey that property from DNR to MoDOT.
Any questions?
And I know that sometimes y'all wrap all the land conveying bills together or whatever, and I am excited to be a part of that if you do that.
Hopefully they'll let you be a part of it. Senator Razer, go ahead.
Senator, are we asking, this is going from DNR to MoDOT, are we asking MoDOT to pay for this land?
We are not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, anybody testify in favor, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Jay Wunderlich, MoDOT. I can't explain it any better than what Senator Rehder has just done. It's a transfer of property from DNR to MoDOT so that we can go in there. It's actually where the pier of the bridge is located, so we can get under the bridge now. There's just a small piece of property we didn't have for this project. So now we can drive under the bridge, do the maintenance work and all the stuff like that. So no money was traded.
Any questions?
It's a good thing.
Senator Razer, go ahead.
Jade, why shouldn't MoDOT have to pay for this? I've always been for these land conveyance bills, and when it's one agency to another, one department to another, or one political entity to another, why shouldn't MoDOT have to pay DNR for this?
In this particular case, Senator, the bridge was already there, and it was a bridge replacement. So it was just when we found out that we needed to actually replace the bridge, we went through our records, we found out that we didn't have proper ownership of it, the Highway Commission. So we went back through the records, worked with DNR. They said, no problem, let's give you the property so you can get in there and work on your bridge as you deem appropriate. So.
And then, when was it, 10 or 15 years ago, we built the Bond Bridge in Kansas City, new bridge, and there was a little piece of property that MoDOT needed from the city, wasn't there?
Yes, sir.
A tiny little strip of land.
Yes, sir.
And it had always been the city's, and I think the city just gave it
Yes.
to MoDOT, which is how that should have worked. The city needed that land back recently, and we were told, what, fair market value? I'm not sure why we should let something like this go through without MoDOT paying fair market value for whatever this is, and I would guess it's probably about $58,000.
I know where you're coming from, and I appreciate that, and thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else testify in favor of the land conveyance, Senate Bill 505? Anybody opposition to Senate Bill 505? Anybody for informational purposes only? Thank you, Senator Rehder. That concludes the hearing.
Thank y'all.
Next up, we have Senate Joint Resolution 46. Senator Black, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that includes me. For the record, my name is Rusty Black, and I represent Senate District Number 12. Senate Joint Resolution 46 states, upon voter approval, that the administration of justice shall include levying costs and fees to support salaries and benefits for state and county law enforcement personnel. This joint resolution is a fix from a Supreme Court ruling in recent years that stated it was illegal to collect court fees to fund the Sheriff's Retirement Fund. By classifying costs and fees to support salaries and benefits for the state and county law enforcement personnel, including sheriffs and former sheriffs, SJR46 would allow the $3 court fee to be used to fund the Sheriff's Retirement Fund the same way it had been funded since 1980. I've sat pretty well at the edge of all these conversations, even in the House, while the decision was made to help take care of the Sheriff's Retirement Fund. This is one piece of that fix. It's very important. And we need to support this one piece so that we can get back in good shape with the fund. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions, but as you well know, looking behind me, there are people that have greater expertise on this than I do.
Thank you, Senator. Questions? Anybody testify in favor of Senate Joint Resolution 46, please come forward.
Good morning, members of the committee. I am Melissa Lortz, the Executive Director for the Missouri Sheriff's Retirement System, and we are here in support of SJR46. This, as the Senator said, is our long-term fix to a Missouri Supreme Court ruling that eliminated our funding. A little history about the fund. We started in 1983 with a state statute, and we made our first payment out in 1986. Our lawsuit cost us over $9 million, with $6 million of that going to the attorneys, $2 million going to the administrators, and $500,000 going back to the people that actually paid the $3 fee. We also have a short-term fix, which the chairman of the committee is sponsoring in Senate Bill 647, which includes a 5% contribution from all active sheriffs. It increases our minimum benefit to $1,000, and it allows us to receive state or a county appropriation. We currently have 146 retirees and 53 surviving benefits receiving monthly benefits from the system. And there are currently 114 active sheriffs and 29 vested sheriffs that are yet to collect benefits. Before the Supreme Court ruling was put down, we were at 110% funding, and we have now dropped to 86.5%. It's very important that we receive some funding, because if we do not, we have no way of collecting money, and in 10 years we will be bankrupt.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions? Thank you for your testimony. Anybody else to testify in favor?
Thank you for taking the time to allow me to testify. I'm Dwayne Carey. I'm the Boone County Sheriff. I've been with Boone County for a little over 33 and a half years, and I've been serving as sheriff for a little over 18. The big thing I think that I want to highlight today, just to not repeat information for you, is the importance of the administration of justice piece. So administration of justice being made up of law enforcement, the court system, and corrections is, again, kind of the argument. And so when you look at the Office of Sheriff and the certified deputies, the employees that we have that carry out those different performances of administration of justice. So, if you look at not only the detection and apprehension of offenders, the detention in our jails, the civil, the criminal process that we serve for the circuit court and associate court judges, also attending associate court, circuit court, having deputies in those courtrooms. So the Office of Sheriff is very much part of the administration of justice. And then just from the selfish side of this, I've been doing this for a long time. Boone County is a SURF county only. My SURF pension froze when I was elected sheriff. So it's something obviously that I was looking forward to for my financial future. And as the director just mentioned, that money's going to go away in about 9 or 10 years. I'm a little longer in the tooth, but I still have a lot of good things that I'm trying to get done in Boone County, so I'm not necessarily going to be retiring soon, but at some point in the not so distant future, I'm going to retire and I'm not going to have a pension. So it's a concern of mine. I'm speaking for a lot of sheriffs who have a very similar story, and so this is really important, and we would appreciate your support.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions? No questions? Anybody else speak in favor? Please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Kenny Jones. I served as Montauk County Sheriff for 20 years, and I've been on the retirement board several years, probably more than 20. And when I started working as a sheriff, we worked closely with the courts, and as a matter of fact, we thought we were part of the courts. And the lawsuit that said that we weren't was quite a shock, because in my mind, we worked so closely with the judges and the courts that we were one. In fact, the courts in Montauk County will not open without a law enforcement officer present, usually deputy or the sheriff. But I would ask that you support this so that we might continue to keep our retirement solvent.
Thank you, Kenny. Questions? No questions? Anybody else speak in favor? Please come forward.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Tony Wheatley. I'm the sheriff of Montauk County, right next door. And I don't want to hit on anything different than what the other members have, but one thing I think they forgot that's an important piece here, Sheriff Carey touched on it very briefly, retirement. Not only does it affect past sheriffs and current serving sheriffs, but it affects future sheriffs. Nowadays, you look for retirement as part of your package before you apply for a job. I think if there's no solid retirement program that's established for sheriffs, that's going to limit your pool of qualified people who want to become a sheriff. And therefore, that's in turn going to hurt the citizens of that county, because they're not going to have the qualified people that they need to run that county law enforcement agency. Therefore, if there's no retirement, I know if I had the choice, I've been doing this for 32 years, and I know I probably would have chose a different path if I knew in the end that I would not have retirement. So any normal person, the younger generation coming up these days who aspire to be a sheriff, know there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, but they have to also think of their family. What's best for my family? So you may have 10 qualified people who want to run for sheriff, but once they look and see that the retirement system is not stable or there is no retirement, I think that percentage will drop significantly, because who would want to go into a profession that is not going to benefit themselves or their family in the long run? Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Anybody else testify in favor?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jim Petty. I live just on outside of town here. Moved here after my time of sheriff. I was sheriff from 2001 to the end of 2016 in Morgan County, Versailles. And I'm here today in favor of this bill. Honestly, it won't affect me too much. I'm old. I'm sure I'm the oldest one in the room now. So 78 if you'd like to know. But there's enough funds to carry me, I think, till I'm done. But this bill, you certainly weren't responsible for the Supreme Court's decision, but it will not affect me too much. But it's really going to affect the younger sheriffs, the ones that even aren't sheriff at this time. So there is something to be said that we need some kind of action to provide for the funding for these upcoming sheriffs. And I know it's not your fault, but I hope you can find a solution between you and the county commissioners, whatever it takes. But this is going to be very important. I appreciate your assistance on this.
Thank you, Sheriff. Hopefully you'll be around for a long time. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Anybody else testify in favor? Anybody in opposition? Anybody for informational purposes only? Senator Black, do you have any closing comments?
Thank you very much for putting up with my lack of timeliness.
Thank you, Senator. That concludes the hearing on SJR46. This committee will stand in recess. Thank you all very much.
The ayes have it. We are adjourned.